Well, if it wasn't for staff, a lot of us wouldn't have businesses. And when we do have staff, it means that we need to pay them, which is a bit of a bugger for some people. However, there is technology that makes it easier to pay these amazing staff members that you have in your team. And some of you even call them family, which is getting a little bit weird. But anyway, if that's you, that's all good stuff as well. We're not here to discriminate nor tell you what you should or shouldn't call your staff. But don't call them anything that's going to get you in front of a lawyer, a tribunal, or a PG. We're here to talk about the technology that we can use to make paying them easier.
What a ripper of an intro, mate. I was just thinking, what are we going to do with these intros? What tune would have you played? Because our regular listeners would be just like, man, there's no DJ Kimmy's in the house. We're not listening to MyFM or a bit of Coast or...
well, given it's about employees, maybe Down with the Sickness. No, I couldn't.
That.
That is rude. That is very rude of me. I mean, without teams, what's the saying? If you want to go fast, go on your own. If you want to go far, go with the team, or something like that.
Oh,
I haven't mastered that.
That's inspirational.
I didn't come up with that.
Oh, okay, put it on a t-shirt, frame it.
Yeah, nice.
Anyway, but you're spot on. Much like a previous pod that we did around GST, we're touching on employees and payroll and reminding business owners out there that technology has come a really, really long way. And much like the bad old days with the similar to the GST return process, the PAYE process is not too dissimilar in that it has advanced and technology's come in, and you don't need to have an accountant doing your PAYE return. And I would probably go so far as to say they're probably the worst person to do your PAYE return because they're not in your business day in, day out, week in, week out, each payroll cycle, knowing what's going on. And Sally might have taken some bereavement leave. Bruce might have decided to chuck it in and needs a final pay. Old Ben needs to go and get a final pay because he's been rolled, bowled and assholed. There's just so many different scenarios. And if I got hit with those, I'd be like, I don't know what you got to do. I don't know how to do that manually. Well, I could work it out, but it's going to take you a stack load of time and you're going to get a massive fee. Well, that's where technology steps in. And I still can't believe, although it's getting less and less these days, the amount of businesses that are still using paper-based processes for managing payroll. So be it timesheets, calculating what employees are due or not due, that type of stuff. There's tools that hook directly into Xero. And I think, by and large, the most popular one that we've seen would be Smartly. Google them. It's an online payroll processing tool. It's subscription-based. It's based on headcount plus a fixed monthly fee. And for the mental rent that it takes up to prepare a PAYE return, I think the numbers stack up because it's, in addition to taking care of your payroll, paying your employees, filing it with IRD, paying the PAYE, don't resist the direct debit. Give them the direct debit authority. Take the cash and pay it. Then it's just freeing up your mental rent. The other beauty of it is you've got access to their team to go, oh, hey, Sally has taken some special leave. Oh, there is a final pay. Oh, we've given a pay rise to this person. They take care of all of that admin because if somebody come to me and said, there's been a pay increase and it's been effective of this date and you've got to do it, for us to work that out as accountants, and we're not in payroll every single day, that's like, it's getting outside my comfort zone because I'm just like, I've got a bit here, I've got to need to do some Googling, I've got to go onto the old Xero help thing myself. If you're using Xero Payroll or even Smartly Payroll, outsource it. You'll save yourself a stack load of headaches. So there's Smartly's common, iPayroll's common. There's
PaySource,
PayHero. Then there's that free one.
Thank You Payroll.
Thank You Payroll.
But I think you have to pay now. But they did used to have, if it was just one person, I think it was free, and then you start paying. This
would probably go down like a cup of cold sick. But we've got no real ties to them. Don't use Xero Payroll.
Ruthless.
Yeah. If you're a really small business and you're all on fixed salaries, sure, do it. But if you've got probably more than 5 employees and there's wages in there or there's numbers of different pay cycles and there's starting to get a little bit of complexity to it, I would suggest something else.
I still reckon don't, And I
What-
appreciate
don't change or stay with Xero?
don't use Xero at all for
Oh,
payroll.
controversial.
Because yes, okay, you might have a simple set of payroll objectives. However, what I notice a tone when someone emails and they're like, "This is what's going on, and we need a final pay," and like an employee's querying this, they're in like a stress, and they're like, "I need to know the answer right now."
Yeah.
And with Xero payroll, you're sending off a support query, and then you have to say like urgent, like please call me, and the account, just for people out there, like the accountant didn't build Xero. They didn't build the software. They don't know like how the annual leave things are. Yep, sure, they can try and learn it, but it's their software. There is a perception, oh, well, you're an accountant, you should know all of this. It's not necessarily accurate. But what I think happens is people run into a hurdle and they're like, I need to get access to this right now. And I think what the payroll providers do really well is they know this. And so then they go, right, we've got 24/7 support. You can call us, you know, we'll ring you back, you know, you can ring us. And so instead of freaking out, you go, okay, I need to speak to someone that can help me. They get someone that can help you, and then they help you solve it. And then you don't have that level of stress. When you get caught in that limbo of like, you know, if you're then Xero sending you back all these instructions that you've got to do, and you're like, oh shit, like this is just, it's scary and it's stressful. And I don't think that's a good use of a business owner's time and their energy.
I think you're absolutely spot on there. Like using the example of Ben getting his final pay, I would have to say overwhelmingly that is the most common question, particularly out of Xero payroll, when somebody gets their final pay slip and it breaks down their leave entitlement, and the way it's presented on a pay slip is confusing for an employee. They're going to go to the business owner. The business owner is not going to know the answers, so they're going to go to the accountant. The accountant's going to look at it and go, uh-oh, I've now got to get my head into this. And it's hard to explain. The answers are on the Xero help section, but it's quite hard to understand if you don't have that background of understanding the differences between how leave's accrued and the technical rules around it. To save yourself that anguish and all the feelings that come with it, outsource it. So as Luke said, Smartly, iPayroll, all of these ones, they've got contact centers that you can go, hey, look, somebody's left, oh, we've run the pay slip, here it is, they've got a question, flick the question to them, and then boom, they can come back, and they can come back relatively quickly. There's the answer, and you provide it to your employee, and you're going, sweet.
Yeah, I think if we go to some data, the 2020, I believe it was, Stats NZ put out a bit of a list, and I think it hasn't changed much, but 71% of businesses in New Zealand have 0 employees. So they probably don't need payroll. They're probably then declaring their profits and paying tax on those. 18.4% have 1 to 5 staff members. So I think a lot of people think, oh, well, I'm only going to get 1 staff member. I'll get, you know, Xero payroll, use a paper way, or I'll just do it manually myself. But if you're planning on having 2, 3, and you're going to be growing, I think a payroll intermediary is a great idea. Also, if you have a business where some people might be, you know, on part-time amounts, then they might have to work a stat day. They're going to do overtime. Oh, there's a time and a half component. All of that stuff. Eventually, you're going to go, oh shit, I can't. Like, I don't know what I need to do in here. And again, it's like you've got to get in touch with Xero or whoever you're using. But I think I had a look before. Smartly, 22,000 business owners are using them.
Wow.
Which is a decent chunk. Like, it's a big customer base.
It is.
Now, the question that you'll have, I can guarantee you they've been asked before. And it's probably sitting in a help desk article, but there's probably still someone that can walk you through it the first time. And when you start looking at like annual leave, bereavement leave, sick leave, stat days, overtime, casual rates, total hours, swapping days, all of this sort of stuff, minimum wage is going up. What do we need to do? Like, all of that is not really what you got into business for. So if there's a business that's basically helping tens of thousands of business through this, wouldn't it be smarter to pair up with them, pay them a bit of money and go, right, I know that if something's not quite right or if I need an answer, I can get these guys. And because they're charging you, not just for the technology that allows the info to go from your system to the IRD, their role is now to support you and get it accurate, do calculations, and answer your employees' questions too. Because if there's one person you don't want to upset in your business, It's an employee, especially with their final pay, because they will already have a figure in their head that they expect to get.
Yeah.
And as soon as there's an expectation gap, holy shit, they're going to turn up with 2 bazookas and they're going to fire them at you.
100%. I think it's one of the most emotive areas of a business because, and this was just going to come to, is an employee is going to know pretty closely to the dollar how much money they're due. And if it's out, you're going to get questions. And then by the time you add in the complexities of all those different leave types or scenarios that can happen, it's like, whoa, that's not why we got into business. And I think if you haven't investigated it, look into it. There are a stack load of providers out there. They're all web-based. They integrate into Xero. It's seamless. And yes, you're paying for something that you might have previously done yourself, but it's going to give you peace of mind and it's going to free up your mental rent in a massive way so that if you get, well, not if you get the questions, when you get the questions, because you will get them when you've got employees, you've got comfort in knowing that you've got a resource there that you're paying for that will help give you the answer to give it back to the employee to say, hey, this is right, or oh no, actually this is wrong. We can fix that for you and you can pass that on and then your payroll provider will be able to put through an adjustment to make sure it's all squared away. To try and work that out yourself, it's over my head.
Now, I don't know what all of these softwares cost, but let's just say that they're $30 a month and you're up for $360 for the year as a simple example. Now, a couple of times what I've seen is businesses start to grow and they hire somebody, either an admin resource or a bookkeeper, and they say in the job interview and as part of their role, yes, I can do payroll. I've done that before. I'm all over it. And they might process the payroll really well. But again, as soon as, someone gets something wrong in their payslip, they're bang, like, what's happened here? What does that mean? Fix that. And sometimes as soon as that admin person or bookkeeper gets out of their depth, and sorry, bookkeepers, like, please don't. Jeez, I cop it from them all the time. Some of you are amazing, okay? But as soon as it's past their knowledge, then it's like, this is the accountant to sort out. It's all forwarded to the accountant and basically like, hey, this is a situation, like, what do I need to do? And guess who's going to get a bill for that? And guess how often it could be wrong and it's got to go back and be unwound, and then the accountant's going to get involved and now they're going to be charging you based on their hourly rate. And all of a sudden, you got a $300, $400 bill to sort this query, and you could have been paying for an entire year to use a payroll intermediary that would have done this as part of the fee.
The key takeaway there is if you're in business, don't be a tight ass and pay for it because it's going to be absolutely worth your while. The other thing that I would touch on are the other employment-related resources that are out there, and the first one that springs to mind would be a tool like MyHR. A lot of business owners in New Zealand, we're still kind of casual about the way we do things. It's like, yeah, I'll give you a job, here's an offer, here's a contract, you sign it, and boof, away you go. And there's very little in the way of consistent documents and processes followed. And yes, it does happen, unfortunately, is that there might be performance issues with an employee. And for whatever reason, it might not work out and the employment ultimately leaves or is let go. The amount of business owners that we've come across in our time that haven't followed the right process and haven't done things by the book, and then the employee then files as it a personal grievance, and then you end up with lawyers and you're paying legal fees, and then you end up having to write out a check to settle it and make it all go away. It's, again, taking time, mental rent, and money for the sake of a monthly subscription to give you peace of mind for essentially what is an outsourced HR function. Something like MyHR can be the perfect solution that you're looking for when you've potentially got, maybe 5 or 10 employees. You should be looking at it to make sure that you're dotting your I's and crossing your T's, because it can be a really messy area because it comes back to a part of your business that's tied to emotion because we're dealing with people.
Yeah, it's smart, mate. The other one that I'm just having a look at here is Employment Hero. And something that pops up a little bit is workplace employment assistance programs and who offers those. Now, that might be something that as you start to hire more people, you might want to offer to your staff members as well. And you just need to Google EAP systems to then have a look at who offers those and do your due diligence to figure out which are good and how much they charge and whatnot. But I think that In New Zealand, the power is normally in the employee's hands.
Definitely.
Now, you might get it right, but even going back to payroll, if you get something wrong in a pay slip and you can't explain it with confidence, what's happened, all the time we hear stories where it's like people think they're being ripped off and they've been an amazing employee for 3 years, but how could they do that? When I went to leave, they tried to dog me of 7 hours of my annual leave, and then all of a sudden you're risking your reputation based on not really understanding this stuff. So I think it's an area where you've got to spend the money to have the right people in your corner, because it allows you to then have a bit more confidence with the speed at which you work. And even, outsourced functions where you can go and get advice around hiring or contracts and things like that. It's stuff that you can Google on the internet and wing it early on and kind of think, I don't need to speak to someone. But, you don't want to get that shit wrong. And, sometimes, we'll see a client enter their first lease and they'll get a lawyer to review the lease. But then come the second time, they're like, you know what? Like, I understand the process now. I understand the risks. I'm willing to, roll through and not use a lawyer. So there are so many solutions out there in this space when it comes to dealing with people, that it shouldn't be one of those things where you go, I don't want to hire because I'm too scared of all this stuff. There are so many solutions and someone else has already done it before you. So lean on them so that you don't, get stuck in that, I don't want to take action because you're scared of what you don't know.
Yeah, I think if you're in business and this resonates with you and you can look back over the last 12 or 24 months of being in business and you've got a team, be it 5, 10, whatever it looks like, and you can go, gee, where has my time been spent? And you can go, oh yeah, this has come up and that's come up and oh, I remember that and that was a horrible time. It would be that much easier if you were leveraging the power of these tools. And I'd encourage you to, if you make one decision for the new financial year, would be to subscribe to something like this so you're not repeating any of the stuff that you've done in the past, which is then going to, again, like we say, free up that mental rent so that you can go off with confidence and do what you need to do.
Yeah, and I will just soften my anti-Xero payroll approach to round this out with, at the time of recording this, these are my thoughts and opinions based on conversations with business owners. But remember that people and softwares can change. And we see this too, where sometimes clients are like, right, it's Smartly. Then all of a sudden it's like, nah, they don't do this anymore. They do this. I'm just using that as an example. And then it's like, no, PaySource, or we're going. So things can change and offerings can change. So, Xero might even, because I think, Xero and MYOB have probably gone, okay, people want a payroll function. They don't need the real grunty intermediary. So let's build something that they can use, but not put heaps of resource into it because it probably doesn't make it financially sustainable, but they might change how they do that. Now, you mentioned before, but just want to stress as well, when you use a payroll intermediary, normally they suck the wages and the PAYE payment out of your bank account at the time, and then they pay it to the staff and to the IRD so that you're staying current. Now, some people don't like that because they like to wait till the 20th of the following month to then pay that PAYE. However, one of Phil's biggest recommendations in business is to never get behind on your PAYE. It is a very bad look and it is not your money, and you're robbing, well, that's probably a tough word, but you're basically robbing the IRD of your employees' PAYE that should have been passed on to them, and using that money to fund your business. Now, that is frowned upon massively when that starts to come out in the media and even with your employees and whatnot. So part of the reason that I think these firms do, these payroll intermediaries suck out the PAYE, is to keep you current with that so that you don't miss that, end up with a late payment fee and whatnot. Now, the good thing too with these intermediaries doing that is that if for some reason the due date is missed, but they're taking care of it all, you can probably go to them and say, hey, like, how has this happened? You'll need to write to the IRD and have that remitted, or you'll need to pay it, and they'll probably do that for you. But the likelihood that that happens would be very low because that's going to eat into their profitability and they wouldn't want that to happen.
Mate, have you got some Panadol?
Nurofen? Neuromol.
Oh, I might need it after all this payroll chat because, my word, there is some admin layers to dealing with this. I think if you're listening to this and you're curious about it and you didn't know that these tools existed, and you want to explore next steps, Google's always a great thing, ChatGPT potentially, but I reckon the single best resource would be ask other business owners. Say, hey, look, I know you've got a team. What are you using? What do you find that you like about it? What do you not like about it? What does it do well? What doesn't it do well? And by the time you canvass half a dozen or so business owners that you know that have got employees, you'll be able to get some kind of data to be able to go, oh, yep, we're all kind of using this particular piece of software, and I know that this one does this and that one does that. Yes, you can do trial softwares of all this stuff, all these online products these days. Payroll's probably not one of those ones that you want to jump on the trial thing, because there's so much setup involved in terms of loading in previous leave balances, all the other bits and pieces, the employee data and identity. There's a lot of admin, a lot of layers. So I think go out there, do your research, find out what is going to look good and work well for your business, and then just dive in.
Yeah, it's a good point. Often with clients, I'll say to them, hey, if you are going to move from payroll provider to payroll provider, say to them, to their sales team, whoever you're dealing with, yes, I'll come over. However, I need your help to move the data across, and get their buy-in that they'll help you do that. And from what I've heard, often they're willing to do that. So, you probably don't want to get stuck with having to do that. But of course, you're not going to be the only one going through that. So they're making easy ways to do that.
If you've got employees and you want to save yourself some time and headaches, then explore technology and how you can use it better in your business.
If you've got any suggestions around topics that you'd like us to cover, please drop us a line, alanp@nextadvisory.nz, or leave a comment on our socials or underneath the podcast on Spotify or on YouTube, and we will see that and we'll rip through that for you at some stage as well.